Ah, I am Hrid, the eldest prince of Nifl.
I'm sure you guys have heard about Hrid's voice lines being revealed in data mine and how he's definitely coming now as a hero in Fire Emblem Heroes. That's all very interesting, but why exactly is this the case and what can we expect? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, I'm Nimius, a gacha YouTuber and streamer. But first and foremost, you can know me as somebody who does Fire Emblem Heroes content, whether it be news, events, GHBs, BHBs, anything at all. So subscribe if you haven't already, and let's start with the main topics. First of all, I want to talk about the fact that he is going to be a legendary hero. And how do I know this? Because it doesn't make any sense for him to be anything else at this point. See, you would not release the voice lines unless the hero's getting close to release. If they put the voice lines out now and put him out 3 months from now, that would be very strange. And the fact that, there's a pattern at this point. Book 2 has ended, and they're putting out all the heroes in Book 2 out right now. So if Yogurt or Surtur out, there's not very many heroes left. Veronica and Bruno, they're a different kind of case, because I would suspect their story has yet to end, and for that reason they are not revealing or releasing those heroes for us to use yet. So Hrid is going to be a colorless hero because if you check out the graphic, we have... It was back in September, but it was done on Reddit, and it basically showed us all the possible heroes remaining. So it was red, colorless, and colorless. Of course, we know the red in October was Erica, Legendary Erica, and there being only one remaining green left, probably far off into, I believe it was January. Yeah, it's January. It's way off. So there's basically no chances of him being anything but colorless at this point, which is all very strange and all because Hrid seems to be the warrior type, so could he be using daggers like Yogurt? I mean, it would not be completely strange anymore because Yogurt uses daggers and she could have learned from Hrid. Well, actually, I haven't listened to her voice lines yet, so I don't know if that's actually going to be indicated there. I'm hoping I pull her so I can listen to her on my own terms and not get spoiled. Anyways, sorry about that. Could it be daggers? I would say no. He seems to be like the warrior type, and daggers are usually viewed by warriors as very cowardly. And as a lord, I don't believe I've seen a lord that used his daggers. That would be very strange. Another option being colorless, because if it's colorless, there's only a few options, unless you think he's a colorless breath hero just like Legend Grandpa. Hrid's a dragon. No, definitely not. Let's not even go there, guys. Could he be a healer? No, I don't think so. Again, the warrior type. If you listen to his voice files and voice lines, nothing about him sounds like a healer. All the healers in this game so far, kind of give it away that they're healer in their voice lines. Nope, not the case with Hrid. So definitely not a healer. And besides, again, you would not look like Hrid. Hrid looks like he's built for combat. He fights. Like, I know a lot of people think, Nim, you're being crazy here. Of course you can be a healer. No, the artists for Fire Emblem Heroes, they're very, very good. They always get down to expressions. This is why we do a Admiring Art series, by the way. Check it out if you haven't already. It's already on channel for the most recent banner. But the artists for this game, they always get down to characteristics of the heroes. You can look at Legendary Grima and kind of understand her. You can look at Marth and kind of understand him. You can look at Legendary Tiki and understand him. You can look at Fjorm and understand, you can understand what kind of character they are just by looking at them. The art is very expressive and always contains at least an idea of what the character is like. Hrid has nothing in him that looks like he's a healer. Aside from that, in story, his impact in story, did he ever, make that clear? No. So I wouldn't say he's a healer. The one thing left, and therefore the only most likely thing, and it's just not just because of the last option, but because in ancient times, nobles were trained in all sorts of manners of fighting, from swords to lances, from riding. But the one thing that people forget a lot is that they also take archery. A lot of nobles took archery. It was a pastime for a lot of young nobles, especially. Of course, this is a different world, but if we're just listening or looking at from the context of ancient medieval times, chance of him being archer is much more greater. And because there's nothing left, if anything, I would relate him more to a hero like Ephraim and be a lancer or use a sword. But because it's colorless, unless they make a colorless sword hero, okay, I hope they don't do that. I hope they don't go that path. But the only remaining option, the most likely reasonable option, is archer. And it would make some sense. Now, I still question all of this, because even though we answered what he most likely is and that he's likely a legendary hero, again, well, I guess I didn't really go into it, but because book 2 has ended and they're dumping out the book 2 heroes at this point, it wouldn't make sense for him to be a GHB hero, because with the maintenance on the 28th, you couldn't possibly have another GHB because it's not scheduled. It's Gnarf or Barf, or he kind of looks like he's Barf. Okay, come on. There you go. So it couldn't possibly be a GHB hero because it would go into book 3 and therefore would not make sense. It's most likely a legendary hero, therefore. Okay, but moving on past that, gotta ask yourself, is this really a legendary hero? And that's one of the biggest things that I'm thinking about, because why have him as a legendary hero? When you look at all the legendary heroes there so far, most of them make a lot of sense. Legendary Marth makes a ton of sense. First Fire Emblem game, he saved the world basically, got the Fire Emblem, slayed the dragon, you know how it goes. Legendary Tiki made sense, helps Marth, and later on helps Chrom when she gets older. She plays a role. Ike, that makes so much sense. The Radiant series, trust me, I know him. I'm kind of skipping over the Telia series, but that's one of my favorites. And I could go on and on for everyone. Ephraim, Lynn. The only ones I would kind of question is Ryoma, because I'll never play Birthright, and Conquest is so much better. I kind of didn't want to say that, but I have to say that. Sorry for you Birthright lovers. Anyways, only other hero is Legendary Grima, because she's a villain, she's evil. So with all that out of the way, most cases it would make perfect sense for them to be a legendary hero. Legendary Grima's kind of the outlier, but So with that said, oh, sorry, we forgot Fjorm and Gunthra. Fjorm made a lot of sense because she starts a journey against Muspel. You find her, and this is her journey. She's, sent out of her home. Muspel has invaded and taken over Nifl, and, she starts a journey to fight and beat Surtur. So it makes sense for her to be a legendary hero because she ultimately succeeds with the Order of Heroes. We beat Surtur, therefore Fjorm being a legendary hero makes perfect sense. Another one that doesn't make quite so much sense is Gunthra. Technically, she starts her journey by meeting you, talking to you in the dreams. Unfortunately, by the time you meet her, and this is a spoiler, she immediately dies. She never really lives up and earns the legendary hero status. And, among the entire cast of heroes so far that are legendary heroes, her and Gunthra and Legendary Robin, therefore Legendary Grima, are the only ones I find a bit questionable. Anyways, moving on past that, so Hrid would make the least amount of sense because his impact on the story was even less than Gunthra's. With Gunthra, at least you knew why you had to get to her. You have to dispel, Muspel's emblem or whatever it was that made Surtur invincible. You understood that. She was the path to that. What did Hrid do? I pause here because if you think about it, he didn't do anything significant or meaningful. So he never... I think the most meaningful thing he did was, hint at or straight flat out say and accuse that there was a traitor among the Mist. That was it. I don't think he did anything more significant. And because we never saw him fight or do anything at all, releasing him as a legendary hero makes so little sense, yet that is the only plausible thing. Yes, I don't know what they're doing. So, you might be right now saying, Nim, why are you so upset? It's just a legendary hero. I'm upset because there are so many legendary heroes in Fire Emblem that deserve to be a legendary hero that are not out. It doesn't take very much thinking to think of, say, Alm, for example. There are so many, I could go on and on, but there's so many Fire Emblem games with so many heroes that could fit this mold. From Blazing Blade alone, we had Legendary Hector, Lyn, and obviously Ephraim is going to have to be one then, right? Sorry, not Ephraim. Eliwood would have to be one. Sorry, once I go on the tangent, it's 4 a.m. I can make some mistakes. Leave me alone. You understand there are tons of heroes that deserve it. He doesn't. Nobody asked for this. So here's my hope. He's free. He's just going to be a free hero they're going to give away, and that's going to be fine. But, if that was the case, and I don't think ICE is really on that poverty train, sorry, no, not poverty train. I don't think they're that generous is what I'm saying. Which leads me to say this final point. Why is he a legendary hero? For all intents and purposes, his role in the story is over. To release him now means a lot of people uses him in book 3, but I know this isn't necessarily how it goes and how it works, but when you think about it, Nifl has been defeated, Surtur has been defeated, now it's the time for rebuilding. Fjorm obviously wants to be with Kieran, our avatar, and accompany him further. You know that from the end of the story. Hrid, however, is the only remaining of age. Yogurt can't lead a country. To be the ruler of a country. So Hrid's going to be busy ruling his country, and you might get like passing story with him in the future, but most likely not. Most likely this is it. Every hero's released so far, I think this is it for their story. For book 2. I think that's the reason why they released everybody, because just to say this is done, you can now use the heroes. Of course, with Bruno and Veronica, they never did that because their stories obviously haven't ended. We never mended those relationships or fixed her bloodlust or anything like that. They obviously have more to go, so they're not released. But for Hrid, he has to rule his country, he has a job to do, and this should be it for him. So it really makes very little sense for him to even be released as a hero. Again, he's replacing real heroes of Fire Emblem that should be there. He's a colorless hero who's going to be Archer, which makes very little sense given his archetype and his just how he's been so far, the warrior prince kind of backstory that you see in like Ephraim or somebody, right? It's just so strange that this is happening. Yet, with all that said, it's happening. The voice lines are here, so that's already guaranteed that he's going to be a hero. Anyways, guys, this has gotten really, really, really long, but I appreciate you guys for listening to me. I just want to say one last thing. If you don't like Hrid, please let IS know. This isn't okay. This really isn't. At the rate we're going at, by the time everybody gets their favorite heroes out, it might be 3 years down the line. It might be even more than that with how they're always taking turns away and going for not really heroes I would prioritize for Legendary Heroes. No offense, but I don't think Ryoma really fits that. I know some people really like Birthright, but still. Again, there's tons of heroes that deserve it. So by going off to these made-up characters that they didn't even spend time developing in the story, no, that's just wrong. So yeah, let them know through feedback after the trailer comes out and he's actually a Legendary Hero. Again, on 28th, it's maintenance, so the Legendary Hero's coming up soon, guys. Just let them know through a thumbs up. Of course, if you like Hrid for whatever reason, it's fine to like him. I don't want to tell you what to like or dislike, but I'm just saying, if you have any anger or any like disdain or you're upset about it and you want to know, let IS know. These are basically the only options we have. That and also not summoning, because ultimately they judge a banner as a success by the amount of orbs it can get people to use. So with all that said, guys, I'm personally not happy about this. I hate being a downer about these videos, but Hrid's going to be a Legendary Hero, most likely. I could be wrong, but all signs indicate so. Even as little sense as it makes, all signs indicate that he's going to be a Legendary Hero. I just wanted to talk about it and get it off my chest. But yeah, this was Nimius. If you enjoyed this kind of video, drop a like. If you're new around here, subscribe. I have to leave these plugs because I used to never do this and I would never grow as a channel as a result. Anyways, if you guys have any other topics you want me to talk about, leave them down below. And if you made it here, I was gonna say something in the comments, but you know what? That's probably inappropriate. Have a great day, guys. This is Nimius, and bye-bye.